I think we're going to kick off. We've got a great panel. So first of all, can I again say a massive thank you for all of you for joining us today, this afternoon. We have got a fantastic panel discussion. My name is Uzma Afridi. I head up the careers team at NABS. And for those of you who are not familiar with who we are the Advertising and Media Industry Support Organisation. NABS is a charity here to support your wellbeing of everyone in the advertising and media industry. And some of the topics we will touch on today, in the talk today with people who look like me, will no doubt be something you as a viewer may have experienced too. So please know that NABS offer a range of wellbeing services, including a dedicated and confidential advice line, career development service, including tailored one-to-one coaching and masterclasses, covering a range of topics, including confidence and gravitas, building resilience to pressure, rapport and influence, and building brand you. And we do invite you to come and check out our website for further information, and we will be putting a link in our chat box. We will be doing a Q&A, approximately, hopefully 10 minutes. It really depends on how this conversation goes. We've got lots to get through. We are going to try and make some time for Q&A. There is a chat box function, and there is also a Q&A box. So if you do want to ask any of the panelists any questions, please can you put it in the Q&A box, because I will be looking through that and facilitating that towards the end of our panel discussion. Unfortunately, if it's in the chat box function, I will be ignoring it and missing it for the moment so that I can really take in and concentrate on some of the great questions that we've got for our panel today. So, without any further ado, the panel that I have with me today, I have Wilhelmina Davis, who is SEO Account Executive at Neo Media Worldwide, co-founder of B-Digital UK, and also founder of Dermalux. We also have Rejoice Ojeaku. Rejoice, please correct me if I've pronounced that.
No, it's fine.
Global SEO Account Manager at Neo Media Worldwide, and also co-founder of B-Digital UK. We have Lauren Hogan Deco from PhD, who is Head of Response, Board Director, co-chair of Omnicom Media Group Multicultural Advisory Board, and a member at MEFA, which is Media for All, which we'll be hearing a little bit about as well later. And we also have Aaron Raby, who's the UK Director of Live Events Momentum Worldwide, who's also a MEFA mentor as well. So first of all, I would just like to say hello and welcome to our mentors. We're not having the luxury of being in the same room. However, we are connected. We've been speaking beforehand. So again, thank you for your time. So I'm going to just kick straight in, if that's okay. We know that role modeling plays a vital role in supporting and inspiring others in their career journeys. However, for many minorities, Black people, and in particular, our industry does lack that where they can relate to. So they lack being able to see people who look like them and have similar upbringings to them. This is something both Wilhelmina and Rejoice found when they entered the industry. And this is really where this talk idea came from. So setting up the scene to why we're even holding today's talk. They approached NABS and said that, a few months ago, and said that they want to start shining the light and showcasing Black talent in our industry. And they're the ones that really came up with the idea for this panel. So thank you, because you're the reason that this is happening today. They obviously approached us, thought it was a fantastic idea. And really what their reason or aim for getting in touch was they wanted to also help investigate diversity and role modeling within the industry. So Wilhelmina, I'm going to direct my first question to you. Why is it so important to have Black role models?
I think it's important to have Black role models so you can see that anything that you want to do, it has been done before. It's kind of like when you start something new, you kind of want to know, what can I do? How can I do it? And to see that someone already has done it, you can model your career path similar way. So, and also helps you to know that, okay, this is something I can do. They did it this way. And especially if you come from a similar kind of background. So kind of in certain situations, you kind of feel like you're limited and you don't really see anywhere out. You can be around people who don't really want to see the best for you. So if you already have those kind of role models and see like, well, they came from somewhere similar, we grew up with similar backgrounds and they did it, it's possible for me to do the same thing, kind of gives you that hope and that motivation and gives you that drive as well.
And so B-Digital, we're both co-founders, you and Rejoice. Where did, tell us a bit more about B-Digital. Where did that come about? Why did you set that up?
So from my side, it started when I started in my job. I didn't know anybody who worked in SEO. I didn't know much about SEO. And Rejoice was the first person I knew who worked in SEO. And we weren't even friends like that. It was just someone I knew on social media and I had seen her mention her job. So I reached out and she's like, oh, you're going to love it. It's great. And a month later, she turns up at my workplace. From there, so we kind of like, so for me, it was like having that, I want someone else to have that. If I wasn't so lucky to know someone like that. And the only reason I knew is because she had tweeted about her job. So we wanted to create somewhere where people can talk about what they do and people can see and be like, oh, I want to do this. How can I get into this? How can I learn about it? And you learn so much, but there's also other things that you simply cannot be taught, just experience. And having someone who could, from their experience, dip into that and give me that is great. And merged with the ideas that she wanted, we were like, okay, we want to do this. And being only Black people that we can see around us, we're like, we need to do this for other Black people. We want them to know that this is amazing industry, there are these roles, you can be here. And our backgrounds are so different. She took the more traditional route, studying marketing. I came from psychology and completely turned. So we wanted to show the different range of, no matter how you started, you can end up here too. So that's how we merged our different ideas and created B-Digital.
Well, I mean, absolutely brilliant. And like you said, you're going to be sharing that with other people, other Black talent out there. And I love the fact that you've highlighted the different backgrounds, because that is something that I'm sort of surprised to hear from people. Actually, sometimes we see coming through career coaching, thinking that they've got to have a degree to, get in the industry or progress. I need to go and do a master's, when actually you really don't. It's, but we will come to that a little bit later, actually, and find out a bit more about your career roots. Rejoice, you were recently interviewed, you and Wilhelmina, in preparation for this talk by NABS, and an article was published on Little Black Book Online. And leading up to the talk, you mentioned that your biggest challenge when entering or starting a new job is experiences racial anxiety. And I have to say, I was quite taken back by that, because I think the word racial anxiety, two quite heavy terms together. And I'd just like to know a little bit more about what does that look and feel like, and really what is the problem with that?
I think if you look at, Black people versus white people, white people, I think anyone has anxiety standard when starting a new job, because you don't know what that company is going to be like. But I think it's a step further for Black people, because it's like being marked purely because you're Black. So there's certain attributes in terms of, am I, would I sound loud? If I'm talking and I'm passionate about what I say, would that be labeled as loud? Would that be labeled as, oh, maybe she's a bit too much? And it's that, going into the workplace thinking little things like, should I wear braids? No, that's too much. Maybe I should wear a wig, because that's, suits, the hairstyles more of the white community. So there's that element of racial anxiety that I don't think, white people experience. You don't necessarily consider what your hair should look like. I remember, when I was interviewing for a placement, I had Marley twist, which is just a cultural hairstyle, and I was told it was unprofessional. So little things like that has sort of caused me to have this sort of anxiety every single time. And it's more so not because I'm starting a new job, but mostly because I am Black and I don't want to be labeled as aggressive. I don't want to be labeled as, loud, because maybe the tone of my voice is, more passionate than others. And that is a barrier that I've sort of struggled to always get over, because I'm always looking for, where are the other Black people? Because then I'm comfortable. Then I know I found essentially my people who will know oh, this is just who she is and that's fine. I don't have to sort of dim myself or pre-think, oh, maybe I should be less than who I am just so I can not be labeled as that sort of person.
Yeah, I suppose we've been hearing quite a lot for quite a while, but I'd say more recently it's the whole thing about being your authentic self at work and bring your whole self to work. And I think that just completely sums it up. You know, I can't believe, I mean, I'm a bit taken back about the comment about Marley Twist not being professional. Everyone should go and get their head on like that now, and let's make it.
Just storm the workplace with Marley Twist.
I think it's something you really, really touched on there for me, that I've been particularly listening and reading up quite a lot, like a lot of people have at the moment. But I think the thing that really captured me was this term code switching. For those of you who are maybe not so familiar with that term, it's really something, well, when I did the research, it really came, I found a feature on BBC 4 Sounds that we'll again put a link in to the chat box, which I think is I really recommend listening to. And I actually laughed at first because I realised that I've been code switching for most of my life without realising it, more on downplaying my London accent, I'd say. And then there was something in there, it goes further, I don't want to give away too much, but there's something in there about how your accent, some people's accents will naturally change as they get older because they've been in environments that are essentially you're having to adopt the dominant one. So the history around code switching, which I found fascinating, was actually originally used to describing people that were bilingual, the people that were switching between two languages, which, by the way, we know in the brain means you're doing a lot more, in terms of the parts of your brain that are functioning. So it's a positive. And then it got sort of moved or evolved to be describing, I suppose, when you are, like I said before, you're not being your authentic self, you're changing your accent, your tone, or the way you might look in order to fit into a particular and what is essentially majority white spaces. Mm-hmm. So, and it's actually it's really been seen as being far more common among Black and ethnic diverse people. So I think when I started thinking about that, I thought, how can I explain that to someone else? Mm. And I explained it to my friend as, they were like, everyone code switches a little bit when you think about it. They've got a professional voice and a phone voice. And I was like, okay. I said to them, right, what I would like you to do a Scottish accent all day, every day. Can't slip in it, can't slip out. It's an accent that I knew that they couldn't do. So I knew they weren't very good. And I was like, just do it all day. Every conversation, every interaction you have, think about that. And then at the end of the day, and they took me on the challenge and they were like, I'm exhausted. So, I wonder here, kind of, has anyone else experienced code switching? Do you code switch still?
I code switch, I would say. I definitely code switch. And I do find myself doing it. If I'm amongst like my family, I have I'm talking normally, but as soon as I click the meeting, I join the meeting, I have this now different tone of voice, and all of a sudden it's, that sounds a bit better. And I think it all stems from the idea of when people of the Black demographic and other ethnic minorities are being told stuff like, oh, wow, you're quite well spoken. All of a sudden that feeds into it, because in our head we're thinking, well, I get complimented, I'm well spoken when I code switch. So that means my normal tone is that me not well spoken. So that is what causes you to always continuously code switch. And it's a very shocking thing once you realize you're doing it, thinking, why am I doing this? This is, there's no need for this. But it is, I guess, a society that we are in now.
Yeah. I think if I can add a build on that, it also stems from growing up. So for those of us who had African parents, mixed parents actually, from my perspective, you get told when you're young that you have to act in a certain way, that when you get into those spaces, I'm sure all of us here have been told that, you've got to work X times harder to get the same sort of results. I've massively experienced that throughout my career. And yes, I will put my hands up to say I have code switched. You do it with clients as well, right? Because you are trying to be accepted or trying to make them, I think Rejoice, you said it earlier, trying to make them comfortable with a version of yourself that will make them comfortable, because they are, you know, when I say they, I'm talking about non-white people, non-black, white people, non-white people. You're trying to create a comfortability that you've been taught that is acceptable in order to have you progress, that you have to, you know, tuck yourself into a box, compartmentalize the real you. You can't, you know, talk about your culture. You know, if you bring your food to work, I remember bringing jollof rice to work and somebody said to me, what the hell is that? It's my food, right? And that, even stuff like that, you know, you then go back into your little shell and think, oh my God, okay, well, what did I do there? I better bring, you know, fish and chips the next time I come in. So there's so much that starts from a young age that you then carry it, you know. And as a senior person myself, I have to all the time ask myself, am I doing this authentically, or am I doing this to create a version of myself that I think is going to be acceptable? And when you're the only person that looks like you in a boardroom, right, it's compounded, because you don't want people to you know, give you that snide look of you don't understand what's been said, because you don't share the same sort of cultural background and the same sort of isms that you see in the room. It still carries on, you know, until you get to God knows where. And part of what we need to do in our industry is completely turn it upside down and break it apart.
I'm going to jump on that. Sorry, I'm going to jump on that. Yeah, code switching is problematic because, and it's particularly if you're starting your career, because it feels like you've got a lot to lose. You know, it's your first opportunity. Very, very nervous. You know, I'm guilty of it myself, but what I can say, I've been in my game, you know, 25 years, and the further I've gone, the less or the more comfortable I am with myself. So, you know, and the body of work that you bring with you speaks for itself. Your reputation grows, which means you can start becoming more of yourself and start showing more that personality. Because this code switch idea takes away you as a person. Do you know what I mean? You're the very thing that makes you a superhero. Do you know what I mean? And you lose that by trying to assimilate. So my advice is, you know, I'm not sure if you can avoid it coming up, right? But what I can say is, as you start progressing, as your work and you as individuals start to excel, you'll find it more easier to bring or show more of your personality. Now, I've been in boardrooms and I've been straight up Jamaican. Do you know what I mean? And at the time it made sense because I needed to communicate something of urgency, and that's the best way I can do it. And it landed, and people are, oh my God, bilingual, right? But it was a
patois.
Oh man, you know, yeah, all day long. I'm a yard man. You know what I mean? My parents are Jamaican. I'm a Jamaican born in England. I'm a yard man straight up, right? So yes, that part of me is what makes me me, and it's the thing that helps me become kind of excellent in the work that I do. So yeah, you know, the further you go, the more comfortable I think you will become, and then your personality can start to show, and then you really feel free, you know.
Oh, I think that's absolutely brilliant advice for anyone. It's about getting comfortable and using the experiences, but especially hearing your experiences. Lauren, can I just tap on something you said? Did you feel at all it knocked your confidence? Because you were saying I'm always having to be basically on.
Yeah, I'm naturally really confident, and my upbringing is really different. And when I say different, I think socio-economically different. So I put myself through college, put myself through uni. I didn't have any parental support whatsoever. And I had to survive, right? My whole entire life has been about survival. So I'm naturally already got the instincts to just fight for everything that I want. But I still got knocked down a few times when, you know, you get told in not so overt terminology that you're too black to be in a particular space. And for me, that was really hard for me, because I thought, my God, I thought I was brilliant, you know, and then to come into this environment to get knocked out, and it gets chipped away at you in the form of microaggressions, which I actually terminize as macroaggressions. I don't think they're micro in any way, shape or form, because it's got such detrimental effects to your mental health, to, you know, how you see yourself, and it makes you question yourself. And I thought that I had actually, I guess, dealt with it as I moved up in, you know, in my career. To Aaron's point about when you get more senior, you feel more comfortable, you feel more freer to be you. And it wasn't until I got executive leadership coaching that it really unlocked that thing that was still sort of compartmentalized in me because of the knocks that I've had, you know, in lots of different jobs, in lots of different spaces, to not allow my full, authentic, confident self to come out. And after I had that coaching, I actually left the company that I was with, and it led me on a different, complete path of, right, okay, well, I'm going to continue to be unapologetically myself. And he said to me that being yourself, to Aaron's point, is your absolute superpower. There's nobody else like you. And if you step into a room and you're not accepted, and you do all the things that you do to get them to accept you, then that's not the room for you, right? You can't stay somewhere where you're not accepted. And I know it's difficult because it might mean you move jobs a bit, but at the same time, you have to get to a point where you really realize that there's something about you that's so great, there's so much value, that if that value is diminished because somebody wants to feel comfortable by knocking it, you shouldn't be in that space.
100.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you mentioned coaching and also leaving that organization as a result. And I feel sometimes some people are worried about that. Organizations might have a worry. I think there's something in there to say that if you are staying in an environment where you're not happy, you're not fitting in for yourself, or, you know, like you said, I think you used the word, it's detrimental to mental health here. Yeah. And really, how much more do you need to know where something isn't a good environment for you if it's affecting your well-being or your mental health?
Yeah.
So it's about, that's the right thing. And I find that often it might not be the right place for you at a particular time in your career.
Yeah.
You can come back.
It's like a bad relationship, right? Yeah. If you're dating someone who's consistently abusive, why should, you know, we advise people to leave, and it's the same sort of thing.
But at the same time, this is where, you know, you need, you know, black and brown people, you know, really good, strong people in leadership positions, because for every one of us that has to, you know, there are thousands just leaving all over the place. And imagine that as an illustration. People are just switching jobs, but nothing's really changing, because wherever they go, the same issue occurs, right? So we have to have, you know, good people, black people, people of color, brown people in these positions, because then you can see it coming. A new recruit comes in, you can put your arms around that person and say, I've got your back, I get it. Do you know what I mean? So, and that's a huge journey. That's a journey that, you know, I'm certainly on right now, and other, you know, executives, because it's incumbent on us to kind of get as far as we can, so we can look behind us and go, right, here's some arms, here's, you know, hang on to us because we've got your back. Because otherwise, nothing changes, and there are only so many jobs. If you're in an industry like advertising, and if you then, you know, focus that down, you could be in, you know, digital advertising. That's small. Only so many times you can do that before you create a reputation for yourself, or oh, that person is X, Y, Z because they can't hang a job or whatever. So, you know, I'm in it from the top. I want to make sure that the top is safe enough so we can bring people in so they can be themselves, you know.
Yeah, really powerful. Safe enough. Well, I mean, workplaces should be safe enough.
They're not at the moment. They're not. We know they're not.
Can I just make a quick point in terms of in the workplace feeling safe? I think it's very key to sort of highlight when other ethnic minorities sort of join a company and you have that attitude of, let me find someone that looks like me to immediately be comfortable. This is just speaking from experience. When I first sort of joined the advertising and media world, my first job, I've been one of the Black at the time SEO executive. I sort of saw other 3 Black girls who were doing insights, paid socials, and naturally we sort of gravitated together. So we would have lunch, we would have, you know, our chats and stuff like that. But over time, as Lauren said, you kind of hear the macroaggressions. We were starting to be labeled as a gang. Because we're eating together, and it was very uncomfortable, and that was one of the reasons I left, because I just felt like I can't even eat with my fellow Black people without sort of someone speaking about it. And that's the thing I think leadership should consider, and everyone within the organization should consider. You wouldn't raise such a comment if it's your white counterparts when they're hanging around people like them. They won't be a gang, so therefore other ethnic minorities shouldn't be labeled as such. It's unfair, and it makes things very uncomfortable, because now I have to pretend and, you know, tell my friends, okay, let's not hang around too much because we don't want to be labeled.
Yeah,
and that's not right.
That's definitely not right. And in that, then it's about businesses have to create a sense of belonging.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Before anything else, I don't care who the business is, right? Everybody has to feel that they belong. Here, equity, equality, and all that. Like, belonging is like a human trait. Imagine being in a family and you don't belong. Yeah, you know what I mean? You're like, hang on, well, I can't eat dinner on the table, you guys. No, you're in the corner. That's the equivalent, right? So culturally, it's the one thing that a business should focus on, you know, having that level of belonging. Because with that, you can then move on. You can, you know what I mean? You can expand, you can grow, you can evolve. You know what I mean? So
can I just build on that? I just want to build on what Rejoice said. So I had a very senior HR person probably about a year ago ask me, you know, Lauren, why is it that you know, you see groups of Black people sit together in a canteen and yada yada yada? So I said to her that, and she was really concerned. She was like, why is it? Do they not feel comfortable with mixing? And I said, well, no, it's not that. When there's a massive amount of loneliness that you feel when you're the only person and you are not used to the culture. And I think we talked about it earlier, that the culture is so different. You know, you come from, there's a couple of factors to look at. Your socioeconomic background is different. And I know, Uzma, we talked about this in our pre-interview, that you don't have the same sort of experiences, right? So skiing is one I always use, because I went skiing for the first time in December and I love it. And I'm like, geez, I wish I had this growing up, but I didn't. And look, that's a fact. I didn't go to, after school clubs. I didn't do all those things that people in the industry do. So there is not really much to talk about off the get-go, especially if you don't want to learn about my culture, my background, what I did growing up, when it's always about the majority. So that's why, you know, you gravitate towards each other naturally, because it's you have that sense of, to your point, Aaron, belonging, right? I'm seeing somebody who looks like me, who I can talk to normally, who I don't have to code switch with, right? You know, I can just use the slang that we use on WhatsApp and be cool and just say, look, oh my God, can I just drop it for 5 minutes just to talk to you? And that, it doesn't stop. And I think it's just educating. And I think organizations are starting to get it now, because we are in such a monumental shift in the space that we're in, that in order to allow people to be their true authentic self, you have to make sure that your culture allows them to do that, and switch up your culture if it's becoming the obstacle.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron, I'm interested just to hear between Lauren and yourself, or even Wilhelmina, do you think there's a gender difference on top of this? Or I just want to kind of,
no question. Yeah, the intersectionality of race is complicated in itself, right? Race and being male is one thing. Race, female and elderly, race, male and a disability. Those intersections are, and you know, outside in people, you know, we just need to see people as people, you know, first and foremost. It goes back to the whole belonging idea, you know what I mean? Try and see past that, you know what I mean? Wrap your arms around them, show them that you care, help them along the way, you know, assist them, particularly if those people are in power, they have to assist. Beyond that, you know, and part of the reasons why we, you know, if we're in a space with 2 or 3 of us, we get together because that's safe. You know what I mean? Safety in numbers, so we can kind of press on together. And it always looks like it's a gang, but if you reverse that gang, look at the size of that gang. Do you know what I mean? Their gang's bigger than ours. What are you asking me about my gang? Yeah, it is problematic. Yeah, it is very problematic. I don't even know how to even answer that question. It's just, it's deeper than just.
I hear the exhaustion when you're talking.
Yeah.
It's just you know, and it's compounded for me. I'm not someone that is black. I am someone of color, and I'm very aware since the George Floyd murder, you know, tragic murder, and it's taken another murder for people, but I think there seems to be something slightly shifting. I think we've got to keep that momentum, and that's for me the key that's coming out of this. But the educating piece, and I didn't realize how uneducated I was in a lot of these areas. And you know, I think every single one of us has to take action. And you know, there's a lot that's come out recently about it's not good enough just to be not racist. You've got to be
non-racist,
anti-racist. So you've got to be putting the action in there and educating yourself. And yeah, that's going to be tiring. You're going to have to carve the time out to do that. And we are going to come sort of towards the end of this talk. I am going to get you to sort of provide, you know, see if there's any recommendations there. But I want
to build on that point about the male-female narrative. I think as a Black female, you don't want to, you're cautious about perpetuating the angry Black female narrative, which is born from a woman who's assertive, who knows what, you know, you know what she's about, she's confident. All of a sudden you get labeled angry because I've got a different point to John in a meeting room because he said something that I don't agree with. And you start to sort of shout, back to my point about putting that bit in a box, because you don't want to come across as threatening. You want to be as non-threatening as possible. And the very interesting thing for me personally, that the most support that I've had in my entire career has actually come from white male leaders, right? Surprise, surprise. Those are the people who put me on executive coaching, who made sure that I got promoted, who, you know, introduced me to people. Those were my cheerleaders in my career. And it hasn't actually stopped now. It's been more and more that experience for me.
Can I just say, even with the angry Black woman narrative, sometimes it also manifests when a Black woman is in her right to be angry about something, and all of a sudden that's thrown at her to gaslight the whole situation, as if she's, you know, it's absurd that you're angry that have offended you. That is also, you know, part of it, where Black women within the workplace are sort of not allowed to show emotion over things that naturally anyone would show emotion over. And that label is in a way to reduce you, to sort of make you to stop complaining or stop really speaking about how you feel and how something has made you feel. And it also, you know, I guess, you know, are put onto Black men as well, where, you know, they're always labeled, oh, they're quite intimidating. He's not intimidating, he's just upset over something. That's just all it is.
Just to add on to that, I feel like as a Black woman, as a woman, first of all, you're already trying to prove yourself in an industry heavily like male, and then you're Black on top of that, so you feel like on both fronts you're trying to prove more. And I've had situations where I have had to go to friends to second guess myself. I'm like, am I experiencing the right emotion here? Something's happened, and I'm like, I am angry right now, but I already know that as a Black woman I can't show that. So I'm like, how's the best way can I show that this is emotion I'm feeling without coming across that I'm angry? I need them to focus on what they've done to upset me than that anger. It's already like, you can't even show how you feel. And in my mind, I'm focusing on, don't show it in your body, don't show it in your face, because the moment that they see that, everything, no matter what, will be taken away from, and all they're going to focus on the fact that you are now angry, you're intimidating. And I'm quite tall and I'm quite big, so I take that into consideration all the time, even when I'm speaking. And sometimes you feel like I should be able to explain or say that this is how I'm feeling without taking into consideration of make sure my voice is even. And I definitely feel like Rejoice said, it is hard for males as well, because they're always being told, you know, you're too intimidating, or your normal face, oh, that's intimidating, this is how I look, like this is just how my facial expression is, but it's that you look like, you know, you're going to attack someone, you're intimidating, and you think, and this what comes back to what we're saying about code switching, you then start figuring out facial expressions to have at work, which is fine, what's useful, what passes. Or someone says to you, okay, you think, why are they asking me that? Like, I look fine. And you find yourself constantly smiling, even though you have nothing to smile about.
I'm sorry, but I've got to add something to that, because if you look at media, right, and I know I work for a media agency, and that's not lost on me, but if you look at media over the last 30 years and the articles that have been written about Black people, Black men especially, the stats on Stop and Search, there was a expose on Channel 4 News just, I think, a couple of nights ago, where they were talking about how it's gotten worse. And if the media is constantly perpetuating this story about how Black people should be seen, it just enters and seeps into mentality, even like unconsciously. And you end up having to, we're fighting that as well, right? You're fighting that narrative that's constantly trying to push you down, but you're also fighting the lived experience of being around people who are seeing you in that way, but you're trying to prove that you're not, right? There's also that thing of being the one Black person. I think we talked about this, Uzma, about you having the weight on your shoulders to represent the whole race.
Yeah.
Right. So if you one foot out of order and that's it, all Black people must be like this. Yeah. And that in itself, again, holds us back and stops us from, you know, experiencing human beings as individuals. I'm not like, you know, my closest Black friends and even my closest white friends. We are not alike in terms of our DNA is completely different, you know, so yeah. Just had to add that.
Yeah, no, absolutely brilliant. And I think, you know, it kind of takes me to the point that both Erin and Lauren, you both are MEFA mentors. And I've actually just recently joined MEFA as a mentor. I'm a week in, and in a space, thank you for having me. In a space of a week, wow, that WhatsApp chat is busy, but
it's lit.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think, again, I hate that phrase of people, I don't want to be in a room full of people that are just like me either. I want to see people that look like me, but I want that diversity of thinking.
Yeah.
But what was refreshing was a group of people that really believe that there needs to be change and have put their name to action. And I think that's really where we're moving towards, is we need more action. That's what I'm hearing. We know the story, we can tell you the story, here it is, but what are you going to do? And I'm just, before I kind of get to the nitty gritty of kind of how we can make some changes, okay, I come from an Asian background. You're kind of encouraged to take a safe career option, doctor, lawyer, accountant, because historically it's been learned that's going to give you status, it's going to hopefully always give you money, and, you know, kind of it's safety. I don't know if it's the same, you know, from your different backgrounds, but what led you, Wilhelmina, first, if you could quickly, what led you to go from a psychology degree into this industry? And I'd be really interested to hear as well from Aaron and Lauren as well, kind of what got you in there? What got you, you know, why did you choose to come into this industry?
So it's like you said, like being like an African child and being child of immigrant parents, and I'm also the oldest, it was, you're going to school, you're going to either be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to do something like that. So when I finished, I was like, finished college, like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. My mum was like, whether you like it or not, you're going to university. You like, it has to be done. My children all have to have a degree. So I thought, psychology is okay. While I figure out what I'm going to do with my life, I can do that. So while I was studying psychology is where I met a mentor who was a marketing teacher. And I was like, I want to do this job. And I had opportunity to go to San Francisco and see like the tech and see in Silicon Valley, all these different roles. And I was like, I want to go into marketing. like, this is what I want to do. And so from then is when I reached out to people like, how can I do this? How can I make that transition? And then I had to like trying to explain to my mom, like, it's not one of the traditionals, but I can still do this. Is still a good role. And this is ties back to another thing that I wanted to do, B-Digital. So some people don't know these roles exist. And also from your background, you're told to focus on these traditional roles. You don't know that I can still have like the status and the stability and all of that other stuff outside of science, outside of being a lawyer, which is nothing wrong with those, but there is other ways to do that as well. And also without feeling like if you don't get that specific pathway, it's nothing left there for you. So that's how I ended up in my journey, and specifically SEO. I think I just fell into it. I just fell into it. Yeah,
mentoring was a key for you though, really, wasn't it? Mentoring was a key, and then it sounds like you had to do the whole evidence list of mum, this is why, you know.
Yeah.
Aaron, was your journey similar or different?
No, I mean, advertising and live events is quite a new, well, no, it's not new, it's been around for about 35 years, but it's now moving to the center of advertising through experiences. So my journey came through live event space. I'm from Jamaican heritage. I'm a Jamaican born in England, and sound system culture is a big part of Jamaican heritage, right? So I grew up in the sound system world with my cousins and my uncles. I then built my own sound system as a teenager, ran that up and down the country. So I had a passion for sound and live events. I didn't go to university. The opportunities didn't afford it to me. But when my friends went off to university, I was left in London like, oh, what the hell am I going to do? So I started to make a real fist of running a sound system, and figured out very quickly that costs more money than you're ever going to earn, right? But the passion was still there. So I enrolled in what was called a City and Guilds course in sound engineering and music technology, and was the first of its kind at the time. And just through my passion for sound systems, I did very, very well. I did, burnt through the course. I was then headhunted by some of the big, one of the biggest audio visual companies in Europe at the time. Went on tour, and then I just wanted to tour the world and collect tour jackets. That was really the thing I wanted to do, right? Had a child, had my first child. That changed very quickly. So now I've got to get myself off the road and get a proper job. And within the live event space, you've got kind of technicians and you've got production management, and that's really where you need to head to. So I made a play into production management, and even then, in fact, the story was I was on a show somewhere like Wigan. It was like my 10th show on the road with all these white guys, and I always used to see a guy in the corner, like that seems that this guy doesn't do much. I'm like, well, what does this guy do? And they're like, no, he's a production manager. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, what does that mean? And they're like, well, all of this stuff, this guy's responsible. If it all falls down, this guy is next on the line. I'm like, man, that's the job I want to do. And the guy said to me, you won't be able to do that. I'm like, why not? And he says, because you're black. Right? And I'm like, the guy said it, a guy called Bobby Dazzler, good lighting guy. Actually,
what a name.
Yeah, didn't actually mean it that way. What he meant was there's not many black people in the game, which was true, because I'm still one of very, very few event professionals in live event space, right? So I was like, all right, watch this. So I went off, started my own small firm as a production manager on my own. I then met, and this is where opportunity and preparation really meets, right? I met a guy who was about to take over a big division at Columbia Records. He was a neighbor of mine, just by chance, and we got to meet and hang out and talk. And then after a series of months, he took me to a load of concerts and that. I'm like, yeah, man, I could do this. Of course I could do this. And I then plucked up the courage to go, look, who does your work? Because I can do it for half the price, twice as good. And to my credit, in fact, or to my fortune, really, he's like, all right, you know what, I'm going to give you a shot. And he gave me a shot. And that first shot was to the launch of Destiny's Child in London. And I was like, yo, I've now catapulted into a whole different world. I managed to, it's a long story, but I managed to deliver that event. And it was very, very, the pressure was incredible. And this is the Priority Act. They were all over MTV at the time. And yeah, I delivered that event, and off the back of that, like, my phone hasn't stopped ringing even till today, right? The work that I put in then has kind of kept on going and going and going. And I found my way into advertising through the live events, because I was a production manager. I've built a load of very, very complex and high profile events. It looks, Jaguar cars and, Secret Cinema and all that kind of stuff. And then the company I'm at now, Momentum Worldwide, was looking for a production professional to lead an event for the Premier League, which was building a football fan park in India, which is very, very complicated. And, my name was on a short list. They called me in, and I literally had a chat. It wasn't even an interview. It's just a human to human conversation with a lovely lady called Fran Elliott. Big up, Fran, if you're watching, and she said, yeah, man, come and work. So, I went in, and now I'm in advertising, right? Through experiences, delivered that event, did really, really well. Turned out that they didn't really have a production division. So I built the production division. I then became head of experiential. And then through all that good work, I was offered an opportunity to go and sit on the UK board. So now I sit as a director at Momentum Worldwide over a course of 3 years that took. But so yeah, mine was very accidental. But while I'm here, I've realised, Jesus, there's not many of us here, and I'm really resolute and galvanised to try and really make a difference.
Brilliant. And Lauren, I'm going to come to you in a second, actually, because I'm going to slightly direct it. I mean, what a career, by the way, Aaron. It's not just. And it sounds
I'm just starting, to be honest.
Yeah, well, looking forward to.
Only just starting.
You brought Destiny's Child, and that was like my love. I was going to see what was coming. No, I was actually, I mentioned it before. MEFA's been fantastic, and I was on the panel actually earlier this week. One of the other panelists was Josh. I'm just going to stop there for a second. Global CEO and EMA CEO of MediaCom, who spoke about the efforts and success that they had in recruiting underrepresented groups in MediaCom. But he did sort of mention and identify that they have lacked to retain that group of talent. So this is something that we see quite a lot, and there is an issue with retaining that talent. And part of it is because some of them don't have the same experience as everyone else. But I wonder, it's just highlighting the importance of, okay, there's getting people in, but how do we actually keep them? And I wonder what is your advice, Lauren? And also, what has kept you in the industry?
So my entry into the industry was also really accidental. I was told to study, go and be a doctor, lawyer. I would have actually become a lawyer if I wasn't in this industry. But I actually studied IT in college and computer science in uni, and stumbled on, wait for it, SEO. SEO is the best channel. So I started off in SEO and took to it really well, because I was already sort of an engineer by obviously learning. So I understood code really well, and I thought, oh, this is easy, and stumbled into all the other channels. And I won't go into too much into that, but I then went from agency to agency, did a bit of consulting, and here I am today at PhD. And what's kept me in the industry has been a few things. My background is quite different. So I know that there's not many people that are like me. So that the other thing is, when I was researching the industry at a really young age, the only person I saw was Karen Blackett. And I mentioned her name in a lot of panels. She must be sick of me mentioning her name, but I just have to, because she literally was the only Black woman that existed. And I thought, bloody hell, if there's just her, we need more, right? And for me personally, I thought, okay, well, if I was me looking up and seeing, to Wilhelmina and Rejoice's point, who else exists, who's done what I want to do, who can sort of show me the ropes? I didn't have anybody to kind of guide me on my path. I was just lucky to have, found the industry. And I didn't even know advertising existed. I was like, what is this industry? How does it exist? It's such a cottage industry and so insular, because the people that are in it And again, to Aaron's point, it's still quite a young industry, only about 30 years old, but the way they people recruit is through their insular circles. So those circles aren't diverse, obviously. If you are just recruiting someone that looks like you, you're not getting the right level of diversity in the industry anyway. And the fact that there is no representation in leadership, again, also compounds the point of retention. But for me personally, I've got this sort of like secret superhuman thing of, I just want to be the representation that I never had. I want to be that person who someone can say, okay, that person exists. And as much as I can, I give my time to I've got mentees that I work with, and I give my time to people and just talk to them about how I got in, the stuff that I learned, the books that I read, the articles that I looked into. Digital marketing as an industry is actually quite easy to get into. And what's happening in advertising, which is really, really fascinating, is that the digitization of advertising is forcing a shift in the traditional mentality of people who are in it, who come from a comms background, who are very much TV people. There's a shift, right? Media is moving towards digital. So everybody's like, oh my God, this digital thing, what do we do? What do we do? But if you are lucky enough to have started in independent agencies, you already have the skill set and the background that you need to thrive in a predominantly advertising and media industry. And it's just, and there's times that I want to give up, that I just think, oh my God, I can't take this anymore. I might just go and start my own agency up. But then if I do that, then you go back to zero, and it's less minus one person. And it's a lot of responsibility to have on your shoulders. But I personally really want to see more representation and more cultural change. So I'm trying to do my little bit in the corner of the universe.
Amazing. And I'm going to come to Rejoice and Wilhelmina in one moment, because I've got some questions that are coming through. I'm very aware of time. I've got some, but Erin, I know with Black History Month and all the discussions that have happened in the last few months, there's been a lot of content that's been put out there, a lot of advice, and there's a little bit maybe of fatigue or overwhelmed with that as well. From an organisational perspective, what advice do you want to give? What do you want to start seeing happening? What is not happening enough? What needs to change?
I don't know whether or not it's true or not that people want to see change. And I think that's the thing, that's the reckoning. Do you know what I mean? Because if we take the 2nd of June, right, Blackout Tuesday, everybody tweet this title. That's problematic for me, because in fact what it did, it told me that Black lives actually don't matter because you're tweeting. Because if it does, you didn't have to tweet, you didn't have to say a thing. So organizations have to really get under the skin of why they want to make change and admit it, like face up to it. We want people of color in because it's beneficial for humanity, for society. It's a win-win situation. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't always be about finances. And this is what makes it really problematic, because we've seen these McKinsey reports, the more diverse your workforce is, 35%, it increases your bottom line by 35%. That's a massive amount of money for lots of businesses, but even then you still don't want to make the move. So hate must be real, I think, right? So yeah, I want organizations to genuinely feel the pain that we're going through, so they can push themselves forward and with pace, whatever it is they think that they're putting together, reassess it and go further, push themselves to go further. It's like campaigns. It's like when we're designing campaigns, we're putting together, bids and pitches. Like we always push ourselves to go further because that's the winning bid, not the vanilla, right? Not the ordinary. It's the same for this, So, then there's some organizations out here that are doing some incredible work. Yeah, just push yourself, because our lives are at stake. That's the bottom line. Do you know what I mean? We ain't really surviving out here. We're just about kind of making through, So yeah, that's from organizations, just whatever it is you're doing, push yourself to go further is my real word.
Thank you. And Lauren, if you've got anything to add to that, and then I've got another question for you to continue with. I'm really interested.
On Aaron's point about the monetary value, in 2016, the government wanted to understand the barriers that people are facing in organisations from a sort of race and diversity perspective. So they commissioned a report. It was the McGregory-Smith review, I believe it was. And they found that if there was equal participation and progression across all ethnicities, then UK's economy per year stands to gain an extra 24 billion, right? And that's not a small amount of money, right? And I think that's like the lower end, because if you look at the Black Pound report, there's so much more in there. And to Aaron's point, if the commercial value doesn't tantalize you and make you feel, oh my God, excited, then what lies underneath that? What is the thing that's, holding back, that integration, for lack of a better word, is a big question for me personally, because it is, you can't just ignore the money. I think the other thing is that it's not been mandated. We know that as human beings, if you're not forced to do something, you're just not going to do it. No matter how much you're told it's going to benefit you. If you get told if you exercise every day, you will, you'll live to 100. You're not going to exercise. I don't exercise every day, but that's not the point. You have to mandate it and put targets in place. I think you've got to make CEOs and shareholders accountable. I think that their remuneration, I think bonuses, all of that has to be tied. You've got to PRF race and ethnic diversity in businesses. If your pay is not going to be affected, if your bonus is not going to be affected, then you're not going to feel the personal accountability of ensuring that this is successful. And also, we're at mission critical, to Aaron's point. We cannot not do this. I don't think that, I find myself as the anomaly in the industry. I think that the generation behind is going to actually make more noise. Some of the young ladies that I mentor, I look at them, I'm like, oh my God, I wish I was like you, because they have so much passion and strength. And I'm like, oh my God, there's no apology. So I think that if you don't want to be driven out, you should start to make that change now, because it is not going to last. The things that you've been doing before, it's just coming to an end now, right?
Yeah. I could listen to all of you talking all day. There's so much stuff there. We are at the dot, so if anyone needs to leave, you please do. But I'm going to quickly just keep you for a couple of more minutes, if that's okay, because I want to fire one question each. Wilhelmina and Rejoice, how do you look after, how do you maintain your well-being when you are having to constantly be thinking about all of these things? And what advice have you got for any other Black people in our community?
I think for me, when the whole George Floyd happened and then the Black Lives Matter movement happened, I think it was a thing, first of all, especially on Twitter, there was this conversation around, how are we managing ourselves with Black trauma being so visible on the TV so easily? Like, it's so easy for me to see a Black person dying, and that is insane to me. So I really think at some point you have to shut off, and I think you should not feel guilty for literally closing off from the world, because you really have to protect your peace. And you have to protect your peace in the sense of, you shouldn't feel obligated in that moment to respond to trauma. And you shouldn't feel obligated in that moment to say, oh, I guess I have to now be answerable to other people within the workplace that might say, oh, how are you feeling? That is too much. And I think there is also a sense of responsibility from colleagues as well. It's not then and there you should ask your Black colleagues how they feel about this traumatic experience. Give them time. They're check-ins. Like, I would do check-ins with Wilhelmina. I'll be like, babe, how you feeling? Are you actually okay? And it's just like, no, I need a few minutes. That's fine. Give yourself a few minutes, an hour, to just sit by yourself in your own thoughts and just breathe and relax, because ultimately there's too much in the world going on and you can't consume all of those things at the same time.
Thank you. Wilhelmina.
Yeah. Similar to what Rejoice is saying, just being able to take that time away and just have time for yourself. Because I remember when all this was happening, I'm at work and I remember thinking, well, I can't focus on this now. I have work to do. Then I remember myself, I'm not Superman. I have emotions too, and I am allowed to feel this and take time away. And like I said, like, we'll always check in, like, baby, good, do you like need time? Do you need time away? Like, if you need me, just message me. And not to feel guilty for, and understanding the privilege that we have of being able to turn away our phones and not engage with this because people are living this, but also understanding that you need that for your own self, for your own well-being, that sometimes take time away and process it as well. And like what Joe said, just being aware when to reach out to people, and also just being a bit sensitive when you do reach out to them, because sometimes you do want to make sure people are okay, but there's a time and place for that. So definitely, yeah.
Lauren, I'm going to ask you, what individual action can someone go away from listening to this talk today and do?
So I think as an individual, if you know that you're from a place of privilege, then you have to accept it and own it, and also start to unpick what as an individual you can do to support the people around you who come from a different ethnic background. And I think it's, even though, to Rejoice's point, there's so much trauma and we've all gone through so much, we've talked a lot and are fed up of talking, I think it's important to lean into the change, because and I get that, look, we didn't create the system, right? To borrow Tupac Shakur's line, I was given this world, I didn't make it. We have to support the people that are in power in making the change, right? They have to recognize that they've created this systemic way of doing things. And if they're open to making a change, then we have to lean into that. Karen Blackett says something that I have to steal. And she said that you should examine your group of friends. If everybody around you, again, person of privilege, is all white, you're not getting the information you need to be diverse in your thinking and in your thoughts and in the way you do things. So you need to start expanding your friends, you know, learn about other cultures. Other cultures are so beautiful. Personally, I find, you know, just every culture fascinating and amazing. The historical context in cultural backgrounds is amazing. And I think that we have to start feeling uncomfortable with going to seek out new friends. I think that would be what I would advise people to do.
Thank you. And Erin, what would you tell your younger self? So I put you on the spot with that one, haven't I?
No. Go quicker.
Okay.
Go quicker, go harder. That's what I'll tell my younger self. That's actually the message to my kids. So it's the same thing, you know. We don't have time to lose. And it's, you know, and going back to that question, you know, this is an opportunity, as well as it's traumatizing and it's tiring and it's very labor intensive. And oh my gosh, there's another report or it's another tweet or da 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 da. This is the 6th version of this in my lifetime. You know, I was a young youth during the Brixton riots, very conscious. In fact, started around the corner from my aunt's house, very conscious of what went on. And my uncles and my cousins was directly affected by that. Broadwater Farm riots, my family used to live on the farm, directly affected by that. You know, Stephen Lawrence could have been me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? How many times I've been chased by white racists with knives, I cannot count on my hands. Could have been me. Yeah. Mark Duggan, the whole way that was handled, and now we've got this moment in time. We've just got to, and it is tiring, we just got to take that secondary breath of air and keep pushing and try and bring as many people as we can along with us, because, you know, it's just, you know, the opportunity presents itself to move forward, you know, as well as everything else. So yeah, move fast, move harder is my word.
I mean, what a powerful note to finish on. There has been a lot of conversation going on in the chat. It's incredible. I'm going to try and take it all and go over it and send it to you as well, so you can see the impact that you are having. Try to address as many of the Q&As that we could, but thank you so much. I just want to say thank you to everyone listening. There's so many key things that we're going through. We have recorded this talk, so if you know, we will upload it. You can go back and listen to this, because there's going to be certain things that you hear, and I think if you listen to this again, you'll hear something else or something a bit more. So please do share it as well. There's an action that you can all take with white friends and with the Black community and everyone else to educate and learn a bit more. I just want to say, there's a few things for me. There's passion that came through, mentoring came through really strongly, and we know that that's a benefit. Coaching, I think executive coaching, Lauren, you mentioned that, and we do offer at NABS. We have executive coaching on, available to people that work in the advertising and media industry for free. So everyone has the opportunity to take that on board. Like I said at the beginning, please check out our website, contact us at careers@nabs.org.uk if you'd like to know more about the career services. We have the advice line for, like I said, if there's anything that's been mentioned today that has triggered or you would like to discuss, the advisors are able to talk through that with you. I also highly recommend the MEFA webinars. There's some fantastic stuff going on in our industry. So please keep talking, please keep sharing, please keep this conversation going. It doesn't finish because we're about to come out of Black History Month. I would just again like to say, if I had an audience, I know they'd be standing up and applauding and clapping you. So here's my applause. Thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to what else you're going to be doing. Everyone else, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Bye.